Hey friends, welcome back to the ScrapbookPal YouTube channel. My name's Safia and today I am sharing a card that I'm going to make using the Pinkfresh Studios Beautful Soul stamp set and dies. So this stamp set has two floral images and they kind of look like they should be on a wreath. That was kind of my first guess when I looked at it. And so that's kind of what I'm going to do. I'm going to put it in like that circle shape that you see on the back there. It also comes with the stencils, which is awesome for coloring. So let's go ahead and get started. So the first thing I'm doing is I'm just getting the stamp off. As you can see, it's all one big stamp. So that kind of makes it easier to stamp it and as well stencil it. And then when you cut it out in the end, it actually cuts out two separate pieces, but I do like that it's all just one stamp and one stencil and you don't have to do it multiple times. So I'm just going to go ahead and stamp that with my Versamark ink. This is clear ink and I wanted to emboss it, and so that's why I'm using this ink. It's kind of like a sticky ink. It just puts the stamp down and makes it kind of sticky so that the embossing powder sticks to it nicely. Next, I'm going to add some silver embossing powder. I always use gold and white and never silver, and so this was my moment to use my silver powder. And so I'm like, okay, let's do something a little bit different. So now I'm just going to take this piece and heat emboss it, and you can see how it's changing as I'm applying heat. I do like to do it from the back, and that way it kind of stops it from overly melting from when you're doing it from the top. So now I'm going to go ahead and start coloring this. I'm just going to stick that down on my sticky mat to stop it from moving. And then I'm going to put my stencil on. So these are numbered. There's a number 1 right over there. And all of the stencils are labeled. So you're not going to get confused, and it kind of tells you which order you need to go in. So I'm just sticking that down, and I like to kind of push it down on the sides to make sure it's not going to move or go anywhere. And the first color I'm going to use is Saltwater Taffy. So I'm applying the Saltwater Taffy to the base of all of those flowers, to the very bottom. I was going to do the flowers in just one color, but then I saw a Pinkfresh sample where they colored the flowers in multiple different colors, and then I decided to do each flower in 3 different tones just to make it, you know, a little bit different. So the next color I used was Kitsch Flamingo, and I'm going to blend that right into the Saltwater Taffy, but not covering it fully. And then I'm going to take my shaded Lilac and do the tops of those flowers. Now, probably there's no flowers that actually look like this. Maybe there are, but I thought it was so pretty to have those flowers in 3 different colors there. So then I kind of did the same with the rest of the stencils and just went over the areas with the coordinating colors that I had used in the first stencil. So I'm just applying shading to some of these areas now to make it look darker. In the end, it didn't make it look much different, but it did make them look nice and dark, which was kind of what I was going for. So for this next stencil here, there's a couple of extra flowers on there that are different from the rest, and so I decided to do that in a different color. I used my Salty Ocean to do some blue flowers also on there, just to give it another color. For the greenery, I'm using Twisted Citron, and I know this is a little bit lighter, but I didn't want to get too dark and I didn't want it to overpower the rest of the flowers, and so I used a lighter green for this part. It is when you emboss it, like some of those areas are really thin, but the stencil did do a good job in coloring those in. So now I've just got the coordinating die and I'm cutting out those pieces, and then I've pulled out the Rustic Leaves embossing folder from Altenew. I thought that would just be perfect, and I'm using it sideways to kind of get that greenery on the top and the bottom versus the 2 sides. The first thing I'm going to do on this folder is color in my center with the Twisted Citron. I debated, you know, leaving the rest of it white, but I'm so not used to white cards that after I put those on, I needed to add some green to the edges of that greenery because it just wasn't looking right to me. I'm not used to white cards, you guys, so it's really hard for me to leave a lot of white space. Now I'm just stamping the For a Beautiful Soul stamp because it's called Beautiful Soul. I wanted to use that stamp, and I just die cut that out too. And I did stamp that in Memento Tuxedo ink black. So now I'm just going to start assembling my card, and I'm using liquid glue for the embossed bit just because I wanted the glue to get in all of those little cracks and stick properly to my card base. Next, I am attaching the flowers, and for that I decided to use foam squares and just the mini ones so I can get them in all of the little places there. And then I stuck it onto the side of that circle, and I went as close to the edge of the card as possible. I didn't want it to be hanging off the card, and so I just got it as close as possible. Same thing with that second stamp there. And then for the Beautiful Soul, what I did was I put some dimensionals in the middle and then some liquid glue on either side, and then just went ahead and adhered that down. One thing that I didn't show in the video is I took a black pen later and I added some dots to that green area in the middle just to give it some extra flair. So now I'm just adding some embellishments, and these are an iridescent kind of color, so I didn't want them to stand out so much because I wanted this card to mostly look like a nice white color, and so I picked embellishments that were kind of see-through and went through the page. So that's my finished card for you guys. I hope you've liked that. If you have, be sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel and check out our other designers. I will link all of the product that I used below and a couple of extra videos up here if you wanted to keep watching. So thanks so much for joining me, and have a good rest of your day. Bye.